For a while now, this channel has been covering the NFL, and we've been using a concept known as C-score. Veterans of the channel are going to know all about C-score, but just as a reminder, and for anybody who might be new, here are the basics. C-score is a metric that this channel created in order to fully and properly evaluate every single team of the Super Bowl era. The purpose here is that full and proper evaluation goes well beyond just looking at a team's record. Now, despite this not being a new concept, I did feel the need to give a deeper primer on C-score. This isn't just going to be beneficial to those of you who are new to the channel. Those of you who have been around for a while are going to learn a lot of new information as well. For one thing, C-score is not just about the NFL anymore. We're also going to have a lot of information on the future direction of the channel. So I did want to take the moment to thank you today for joining us. Please do the whole YouTube thing. Like this video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, ding that bell to get notifications on all future videos. Thank you so much for joining us today. Stick around because we're going to be going on a football journey as brought to you by the one and only C-score. C-score takes a team's accomplishments during a season, whether good or bad, and distills all of that into one cumulative and comparative score, reflecting the context of the season in question. The ratings themselves are pretty simple. 0 is average, anything above 0 is above average, anything below 0 is below average. C-scores have ranged from the 52.163 put up by the 1985 Chicago Bears to the 0.000 put up by the 2012 Dallas Cowboys, down to the negative 50.645 put up by the expansion 1976 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That means the 85 Bears are approximately 52% better than what would be considered an average NFL team, and the 76 Bucs are approximately 50% worse than that same average NFL team. C-score does consider a team's results, which does include their win-loss record, but it also incorporates their Pythagorean win-loss record, as well as their points scored and points allowed as it relates to the scoring environment. Scoring 30 points per game in 1975 is a hell of a lot more impressive than doing so in today's NFL. Then we have a team's performance, which is basically everything they do on a football field that isn't directly related to scoring points. We're talking about things like yardage, game control, efficiency, things like that. Winning a game by 7 points that you led by 21 all the way throughout is seen as more impressive than winning a game by 7 points that was nip and tuck all the way through. Then there's quality of opponents, something vital in the NFL, where no one team comes close to playing all the teams in its league, whereas in most other sports, everyone does play everyone, and in a lot of cases do so multiple times. Performance level against that particular set of opponents is also measured as such. If two teams have identical season-long performances, but one did so against a difficult schedule, while the other did so against a weaker one, it should be completely obvious which team is more impressive and will therefore achieve a higher C-score. When applicable, a team's playoff performance is also included. No team will see their C-score lowered based on playoff performance though. It can either rise from its score at the end of the regular season or stay the same. It never did seem right to punish teams for achieving their goal of reaching the postseason, so we don't do it. Now, by its nature, C-score is a backwards-looking metric. Every team starts the season at 0.000, and their score is earned strictly through what takes place on the football field for the season in question, with zero regard to prior expectations, prior performance, roster construction, name value, or anything else. It does not present itself as a predictive metric, but inferences can of course be made. A team with a plus 25 C-score should be expected to beat a team with a minus 25 C-score. But let's say one team is only a couple of points higher than another and is suddenly dealing with a few injuries. Then that lower rated team might probably be expected to win without that C-score having to change. It'll change after the game, of course, but that's all. Some may call that a blind spot, and hey, that's a fair assessment. But sometimes the reason why a team's C-score is what it is can be more interesting than the C-score itself, and we love conversation like that around here. So with all that in mind, there are some other metrics out there that C-score has been compared to, and we wish to go over some of these right now. And the first one is DVOA, or Defense Adjusted Value Over Average. Hell, we have, on this channel, compared C-score directly with DVOA with regards to every Super Bowl champion. We have different ways of approaching things, of course, which is why our ratings won't be identical, but we are essentially trying to accomplish the same thing. We are judging teams against the baseline of average. In DVOA's case, it's right there in the name. One example here, C-score gives the 2017 Philadelphia Eagles a 30.653. DVOA assigns it a 27.1%, which lines up just like C-score does. This is a percentage above average. It's just for aesthetic purposes that we don't use a percentage sign, and we like to go deeper in the score to the 1000th place to avoid having too many ties, although we certainly do have some ties. So while we both think the 2017 Eagles are an awesome team, C-score is just a little bit more bullish on them. Then we got a team like the 2023 Kansas City Chiefs. C-score rates them nicely at 13.612. DVOA, though, sees them in a much better light at 24.4%. Like we said, trying to accomplish the same thing, just by different means. No different than, say, Baseball Reference and Fangraphs, both having their own WAR metric for baseball, and coming up with different, yet similar results. It would seem that DVOA rates out as the most similar to C-score, but I do believe there is one that does so even more, and we'll get to that one soon enough. SRS stands for Simple Rating System and is the go-to for footballreference.com. It is what it says it is. Simple. It's the combination of average margin of victory and strength of schedule. It does not take wins or losses into account at all, nor does it take into account game control. All 4-point victories are treated equally. Margin of victory is inherently a part of C-score, but it's not the end-all. Say the Giants have an average margin of victory of 4.2 points, and the Jets have an average of 4.1. With the exact same strength of schedule, SRS would rank the Giants ahead of the Jets every single time. Like C-score and DVOA, the baseline here is average, reflected by an SRS of 0.0. Unlike C-score and DVOA, it's not percentages that reflect how far a team rises above or sinks below that average. It's just pure points. A team with an SRS of 4.5 is 3 points, or a field goal, better than a team with a 1.5. So while there are comparisons to be made here, the scoring systems themselves are a bit fundamentally different. FPI is a metric from ESPN, which stands for Football Power Index. This one is more similar to SRS in that above average and below average lines up with points rather than percentages. A major difference, and this is indeed a major difference, is that FPI treats itself as a predictive metric. Back to that 4.5 and 1.5 example. SRS would state that the 4.5 team is 3 points better than the 1.5 team. FPI says that the 4.5 team should beat the 1.5 team by 3 points, or at the very least is 3 points better than them on a neutral field. FPI attempts to quantify injuries and other factors that could either positively or negatively affect a team in such a way that hasn't yet been demonstrated on the actual field of play. And I'm sure they have a sophisticated manner by which they do this, but C-score deals with the concrete and doesn't try to guess its way through a rating. So we are pretty far apart from FPI. EPA is expected points added and really gets into the weeds on a play-by-play basis, requiring full play-by-play data, which the NFL doesn't exactly have going back through the years. This measures success rate, which basically measures efficiency, but doesn't coalesce into a final team number the way C-score does. Pro Football Focus rating is a whole different animal. They seek out individual players rather than teams, and they do so on a play-by-play basis. I know we say the word "we" a lot when referencing this channel, but as mentioned in our 5,000 subscriber video, that's more of a term of art. It's just me here, and I do not do this full time, so every player on every play is absolutely impossible. These guys have several people whose job it is to do this, and hats off to them. But yeah, it's not going to be possible over here. If we could, something like PFF ratings could find themselves useful in a team setting. All of this is to say that we do not rate individual players here, at least not through a metric. There are many more metrics we're leaving out, of course. Just like someone accepting an Academy Award isn't going to mention everyone in an acceptance speech, neither will we list them all. But there is one more worth mentioning, one that I believe most closely aligns with C-score, even more than DVOA, and ironically, it's not even an NFL-based metric. That would be strength of record. ESPN.com uses this as a part of a college team's resume alongside FPI for football and BPI for basketball. Interestingly enough, even though these are strictly presented as rankings without an accompanying rating, I do believe this metric to be the closest to C-score, in that we are truly trying to accomplish the same thing. How good is this team? Not despite its record, but in line with its record. One major tenet of C-score, if not the major tenet, is that all records are not created equally. Yes, a 13-3 team will sit ahead of an 11-5 team in the standings, but we should never automatically accept that the 13-3 team is better. More successful? Sure. But more successful is not the same as better. 2007's most successful team was the New York Giants because, they won the Super Bowl. That much is indisputable. But even though they beat the Patriots to win that Super Bowl, saying they are a better team than them, especially considering the entire season, is intellectually dishonest. Sure, they were 3 points better over those particular 60 minutes of play, and in that context, nothing else matters. But that's not what we're here for. We are here for the how and why a lot more than the what. With all those C-score tenets, the channel has a few tenets as well. Call it a C-score credo, if you will. This is our declaration of principles. Number 1, reverence for the team. Football is the ultimate team sport. We evaluate it through a collective lens, not just through the individual. Number 2, no player as team synonyms. Teams win and lose, not single players. We ban lazy phrasing like Josh Allen beat the Bengals. In that sense, and in this sense, we are nothing like Tony Romo. Number 3, sample size over recency. One NFL game is under 6% of a regular season. A single week will never overwrite the larger data pool. Number 4, process over outcomes. Great ideas can fail and awful ideas can succeed. Results are not automatic proof of concept. We judge by the process, not the final scoreboard, never inventing lazy, retroactive storylines to explain a win or a loss. Number 5, every single game matters. Two 16-1 teams are not just automatically compared by that one, something college football does all too often. That 16 plays its part as well. Number 6, steadfast evaluation. Football is inherently unpredictable. Our methodology is not. We remain consistent in how we evaluate the game, regardless of its unpredictable outcomes. Number 7, absolute mathematical fidelity. Math is a universal language. When the data contradicts conventional wisdom, we trust the data. Number 8, the anti-narrative standard. We do not manufacture storylines to fit the data. We let the data build the storyline. Number 9, the toolbox principle. While C-score, our proprietary metric, is completely unique, it does serve to complement existing tools. It is meant to add to the conversation, not replace it. And number 10, confident humility. We possess well-rooted football knowledge without assuming that we have all the answers. We value thoughtful analysis from other voices and absolutely welcome the perspectives of this audience. If you ever catch me not living up to any of these, I'm gonna need you to call me out. Now, respectfully, hopefully, but please do so. One last bit here, something we've mentioned before, but we'll mention again. Principle number 9 referred to C-score as a proprietary metric, which essentially makes it a trade secret. There have been requests, and there will be requests in the future for C-score's exact formula. We're not exactly KFC or Coca-Cola around here, but that formula will always remain in-house. We have to protect the one tiny little bit of intellectual property that we have, and we need the channel to maintain its edge. So as much as I truly love the fact that some of you want to learn this information, it simply isn't available to divulge. I'm grateful for your understanding. Thank you for supporting the channel. I hope to see you around for a long time to come. Now let's talk about the future of the channel and C-score itself. As mentioned, we have stuck to the Super Bowl era. That means the 1966 season and onward. In that season, we had both the NFL and the AFL, and they both provided us C-scores up to and through the 1970 merger. But the first 6 seasons of the AFL, the first 46 seasons of the NFL, and the entirety of the AAFC has been left out. That will no longer be the case. The Super Bowl era has given us 60 years, 64 seasons, and 1,770 teams. With the inclusion of the rest of NFL history, the rest of AFL history, and all of the AAFC's history, we rise to 106 years, 120 seasons, and 2,416 total teams, and every single one of them has a C-score. It's not exactly that straightforward though. It's clear that the AAFC and AFL were inferior leagues to the NFL from top to bottom. C-scores are somewhat tempered to reflect that reality, but there will be teams from those leagues whose C-scores look like they'd fit in right with the NFL teams that they just might have lost to head-to-head. Probably, maybe, who knows, because there was never a point of reference until 1966, even if that point of reference for 4 full seasons was exactly 1 game per season. Like any metric, we are gonna lack perfection in certain areas. This might just be one of those areas. C-score for the Super Bowl era has always disregarded home field advantage, and that is not changing. The vast majority of NFL history sees balanced schedules as far as home field goes, and even now, with a 17-game schedule, the way that extra home game is handled is balanced throughout multiple seasons. This is not the case in the playoffs, but hey, playoff teams should be of a certain quality and wouldn't need to care as much. And while a majority of seasons haven't given home field to a team that has earned it by their record, a majority of playoff games have. All of this is to say that C-score will maintain its neutral stance on home field advantage. That old era does offer one issue though, a lack of centralized scheduling. Let's take the 1926 season for example. The Frankfurt Yellow Jackets went 14-1-2, playing a 17-game schedule that 100 years later is the standard. That is not the standard in 1926. There was no standard. Teams played whoever they played. The Detroit Panthers played 12 games, the Brooklyn Lions played 11, the Dayton Triangles 6, the Louisville Colonels 4. These scheduling results were tempered to reflect this imbalance from 1920 through 1934. 1935 saw a 1-game imbalance due to weather, as did 2022 for different reasons, so we can live with those discrepancies. 1936 standardized the season though, and gave us one less thing to worry about. Now, there's one thing we haven't mentioned yet when talking about C-score as it existed before this video. Each team not only had a base C-score, but also an offensive and defensive C-score. However, we must concede two major problems with the way this was presented. One, we have acknowledged in the past that special teams were essentially folded into offense and defense where they potentially best fit. Yes, that is clunky, but that's not even the biggest concern. For some reason that we can't quite clarify at this time, we designed the separate offensive and defensive scores to add up to total C-score. Let's take, for example, the 2003 New England Patriots. They have a C-score of 21.894. This team was indeed more defense than offense and is reflected as such in our scores. On offense, they landed a 6.579, on defense a 15.315. Add them up and yeah, you get 21.894. Seamless, right? No, not so much. You see, C-score is by nature a measure of how much better or worse than average a team is. By having these numbers, even though they're part of a unit, add up to the final score rather than average out, we have circumvented that notion. 6.579 does not represent a percentage of how much better the New England Patriots offense was in comparison to league average, and neither does 15.315 represent that for the New England defense. Further exacerbating this, of course, is the fact that these ratings absorb special teams as well. So we needed to make a decision here, and it was a tough one, but here it is. We are scrapping existing offensive and defensive C-scores, but we are going to make up for it. To this point, every NFL team had those 3 C-scores, a main one, an offensive one, and a defensive one. Now, each team will have 8 individual C-scores. Moreover, those scores will truly represent what C-score is all about. A measure of how much better or worse a team or a particular unit within that team is compared to league average. And we're going to start with offense and defense, and we're going to go right back to the 2003 New England Patriots. That base score of 21.894 does not change. It never changes for any team. But that offensive C-score is now 11.011, and that defensive C-score is 37.677. Right? This is much better. This is how much better these units are than league average. And speaking of average, these two scores now average out to 24.344. Wait a minute, what? That is not the same as their base C-score. Oh yes, that now brings us to special teams. We had to do some digging throughout the years, but it was worth it because special teams matter, damn it. Every NFL team now has a dedicated special teams C-score that stands completely on its own, away from offense, away from defense. As far as the 03 Patriots go, that special team score is 6.11. Now, the average between these three is 18.266, which is still not lining up. But here's the rub. These three scores are not going to create a perfect average, much in the same way that the 3 phases of football don't represent equal thirds of an NFL game. Offense and defense, naturally existing simultaneously, will make up around 80 to 85% of a modern NFL game, with only about 15 to 20% going to special teams. So considering a hypothetical 80-20 split, we get an equation that looks like this. Offense and defense will always get a perfect split, so in this case 40 each, and plugging in each of these individual C-scores will get us to the base score. Now it's not going to always be this perfectly clean 40-40-20 for every season, and in fact this equation is adjusted for each individual season based on its own individual environment. Thus, at long last, we officially welcome special teams into the C-Score fold as its own unique entity. It is well deserved and quite frankly long overdue. But we said each team would now have 8 different C-scores, and we've only revealed 4. This all started with the Q&A the channel did to commemorate reaching 5,000 subscribers. One of the questions came from Gabriel Odds 9081 asking if it would be possible to break offensive and defensive C-scores into rushing and passing totals. Here, let's give it a listen.
Yeah, it totally would be. I'd have to dig into it a little bit. Give me a little time. But that's just another way to give C-Score a more expansive audience. Thank you for that suggestion. This is something that's going to happen.
For real, the thought had never crossed my mind. I don't know why. It's not some off-the-wall concept. It's as basic as offensive and defensive statistics get. Rushing and passing. So yeah, I told Gabriel we'd get it done, and we got it done. And now, each of these teams will have their offensive C-Score further broken down into rushing and passing components, as will their defenses, bringing us to that total of 8. Right back to the 2003 Patriots. Their offensive rush score is 0.557. Remember, this was the season before they got Corey Dillon. And their offensive pass score is 21.465. And hey, look at that. You take the average of those two and you get 11.011. No need for fancy formulas here, it's an even-Steven split. Same goes for that defense. The rush score is a monster, 51.593. The pass score is lower, but nothing to sneeze at, 23.761. And they average out to, you guessed it, their defensive C-score of 37.677. Yes, the passing game is much more prevalent than the running game in the modern NFL, and it has been that way for quite some time. Back in the day, the run game was much more prevalent, but the two always go hand in hand, so an even 50-50 split is the absolute right way to go about things. Now that run defense C-score does need some looking at. 51.593 is obviously a very impressive number. This Patriots unit was just a little more than 51.5% better than what would be expected to be the league average. If this was the entire team C-score, it would rank as the second highest of the entire Super Bowl era, sitting in between that era's 2 Super Bowl winning powerhouses, the 1985 Chicago Bears and the 1991 Washington Redskins. We are going to see really big numbers like this, with some getting significantly higher. Just for now, sticking with the Super Bowl era, the 2003 New England Patriots, with that individual score of over 51.5, ranks 40th all-time among rush defenses. This makes for a fairly simple explanation though. It's a lot easier for a single unit to achieve a certain distance from average than it is for an entire team. Moreover, as is the case here, this is a unit within a unit. 51.593, 40th best of the Super Bowl era, that is still squarely in the upper half of the 97th percentile, but there are 39 others with a higher score. The one thing we can't do though is to take these extra C-scores all the way back to the NFL's beginnings in 1920. Stats were not kept until the 1932 season, but those were sketchy as hell and didn't provide us with what we needed to produce the most accurate outcomes we could. So we're going to be starting in 1933. Thus, the 196 teams from those previous 13 seasons will just have a regular old C-score. That still leaves us, though, with 2,220 teams that have all 8. So do the math really quickly. That will give us 17,956 C-scores to eventually look at. Hey, that's pretty darn good. Two last things to talk about on this subject. NFL teams of the early days played against several different teams that were not members of the NFL. And yes, we have been fully aware this entire time that the league was named the American Professional Football Association in its first 2 seasons. But for simplicity's sake, we're just going to refer to the whole thing as the NFL. Only games played by NFL teams against NFL teams count. So when the Akron Pros in 1920 played their first game against the Wheeling Stogies, great name by the way, that doesn't count toward anything. Their next game against the Columbus Panhandles does. And an offshoot from all that are those non-NFL teams and non-NFL leagues other than the AAFC and the AFL. Of course, many other professional football leagues have existed in the past. Another AFL, the USFL, the WFL, the Arena League, the XFL, and whatnot. Even today, the CFL, the UFL, the IFL, and many others are very much kicking around. Why are we counting the AAFC and the AFL of the 1960s and not the others? Very simple. These leagues eventually folded into or merged with the NFL while the others did not. Even in the case of the AAFC, where fewer than half the teams made it in. If another league ever merged with or folded into the NFL, then maybe we can talk. College football has been part of the American landscape for a very long time. The Chicago Cubs had yet to play their first baseball game. The country wasn't even 75% complete, as 13 future states were yet to be admitted into the Union. It was on November 8, 1969, barely 4 years after the end of the Civil War, that Rutgers University and the College of New Jersey, now known as Princeton University, got together on a frosty afternoon on the Rutgers campus in New Brunswick, New Jersey. They played a game that resembles modern football in the same way a baby's tricycle resembles a Harley Davidson. Yeah, it's in the same basic universe, but not remotely in the same galaxy, with perhaps 100 people in attendance, having no clue whatsoever that what they were watching would one day grow into by far the nation's most popular sport. The Queensmen of Rutgers defeated the Tigers of New Jersey College by a score of 6-4, which would absolutely be an NFL scoregami. This game is widely recognized as the first college football game ever played. It took a while for the sport to take shape, 43 years in fact. Then came the 1912 season. Standardized rules and regulations that we take for granted today were put into place that remain the core of the game today. 4 chances for a first down, 10 yards needed, 6 points for a touchdown, 10-yard end zones, so on and so forth. Yes, if you put on film, if it exists, from a game in 1912, it would still look way different than a game in 2025. But this was when football became football. And it is for that reason that we are bringing C-Score to college football, but taking it back to just the 1912 season and no further. Of course, just saying the words college football makes for a large encapsulation. Occidental College fielded a team in 1912, fielded several teams before 1912, and fielded more than 100 more well into the 21st century. Yet across all these seasons, Occidental does not accrue a single C-score, because at no point in time do they register as what we are going to be referring to as a major college football program. In today's college football, such delineation is incredibly easy. We have the Football Bowl subdivision, also known as the FBS, which clearly serves as the highest level of the game. All teams at that level qualify as a major college football program. Any team in the FCS, D2, D3, NAIA, or anything else that isn't the FBS does not qualify as a major college football program. See, very easy. Before the FBS was Division 1A, then just Division 1, the university/college division, and what have you. More often than not, this would clarify things, but not always. And before that, when everything was a single division, things were decidedly not clarified. So we took this out of our own hands and let Sports Reference make the call for us. If Sports Reference sounds familiar, it's because it's the parent company of Pro Football Reference, Baseball Reference, and so much more, including sportsreference.com/CFB. For some reason, college football doesn't get its own domain name. So be it. Anyway, Sports Reference has listings for every single season ever of college football, going all the way back to 1869, covering that second Princeton-Rutgers matchup that took place one entire week later. Now we're starting in 1912, of course, and in 1912, and in every season all the way through 2025, is a subsection called standings. Let's take 1912 for example. The standings list the following 76 schools, and there you have it. These are the 76 schools that will qualify as major college football programs for the 1912 season. And just like we're doing for the early days of the NFL, only games against other major programs are going to count towards C-score. Let's take the Harvard team, listed here at 9-0. As we dig into their schedule, we see their first 4 games are against Maine, Holy Cross, Williams, and Amherst. Among these 4 schools, Holy Cross will eventually gain major status for the first time in 1936, but not so much in this season. Under conference, they're all listed as non-major, and equally as telling, they're not even linked, as Harvard's final 5 opponents are. That would be Brown, Princeton, Vanderbilt, Dartmouth, and Yale. Of all these schools, Harvard included, only Vanderbilt remains at this level. So while the record books show Harvard at 9-0, for our purposes, they are only 5-0. For our purposes, nothing Maine, Holy Cross, Williams, and Amherst do in 1912, whether against major college programs or not, matters. And unlike the NFL, who only had this issue crop up in its early days, college football in 2025 still presents us with this issue. Ohio State's game against Grambling? That's a no-go. How about Alabama against Eastern Illinois? Never happened. Florida State versus East Texas A&M? Please. This is also going to be the same for conference affiliation. Let's go back again to 1912. You may notice in these standings that 55 of the 76 teams are further listed as independents. While yes, many more independent programs existed throughout the annals of college football, well beyond just Notre Dame, 55 out of 76 does seem like a lot. The other 21 teams are only listed in 3 separate conferences. 6 are in the MVIAA, sort of a forerunner to the modern Big 12 conference. 7 in the Rocky Mountain Conference, not truly a forerunner to any modern-day conference. And 8 in the Western Conference, a clear forerunner to the modern Big 10. Now, if you look at other sources for the 1912 season, say Wikipedia, you will see more than 3 conferences listed. More interestingly, you see teams listed as independents on Sports Reference, such as Vanderbilt, Texas, and Texas A&M, listed in conferences. Vanderbilt in the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Association, Texas in the Texas Intercollegiate Athletic Association, and Texas A&M in both. With all due respect to these conferences, housing many schools that reside in the modern-day FBS, many in major conferences, many considered absolute blue bloods of the sport, trying to mess around with these discrepancies is too arduous a battle for us to take on. Until such time that Sports Reference itself bestows major conference status on these guys, if they ever do, then the schools within them, at least the ones regarded as major college football programs, will be treated as independents. All of this is to say that we defer to Sports Reference in every single instance from 1912 onward. What we've got then are 24 different historical conferences. The Big Ten, under various different names over the years, is present in every single year between 1912 and 2025. Then you've got the SWAC making a lone appearance in 1977. Today we have 9, and with the re-emergent Pac-12 there will be 10. Conferences themselves do not shape C-score ratings, but they will be playing a very big role with something else that we've got planned that we will be revealing in due time. We've just talked about games that happened and have been counted that we're not going to count. Now let's talk about some games that happened that aren't counted that we are going to count. Let me explain. Many may remember the 2012 Notre Dame Fighting Irish. 24 years after their last championship, they were matched up with the Alabama Crimson Tide in a game that, if they won, would provide them that long-awaited title. It was the most important game for the program after the best season they'd had in nearly a quarter century. They lost the game, of course. Alabama was a special kind of powerhouse that season, especially defensively. But all in all, 12-1 isn't too shabby a record to look back on. Except that if you actually do go back and look upon it, their record is listed at 0-1. Something to do with a tutor impermissibly helping two players with homework assignments. Geez, man, I guess they're lucky the entire football program wasn't shut down. If there was ever a reason to vacate an entire season, clearly this would be it. Never mind the horrible scandals that have otherwise existed that left permanent emotional scars that can never be healed. A tutor impermissibly helping two players with homework assignments is the absolute pinnacle. Yeah, if you can't tell, I'm being heavily sarcastic here. We count what happens on the field, however the NCAA feels about it after the fact. We mentioned in our NFL primer that home and away doesn't mean a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, and therefore, it does not play a role in calculating C-score. That is not the case in college football for two reasons. One, the haves and have-nots in college football have always existed and continue to do so. Home field advantage takes on a different meaning depending on where a game is being played. But that's not even the main reason why. Some teams regularly play several more home games in a season than they do on the road, simply on account of non-conference scheduling. Take the 2022 Michigan Wolverines. The 2023 team is more well remembered, of course, since they won the national championship. But in 2022, they bravely opened their season with home games against Colorado State, Hawaii, and UConn. Truly a gauntlet of college football powerhouses. After barely scraping by that triangle of terror by just under 50 points per game on average, Michigan then entered their Big Ten schedule. Maryland, Penn State, Michigan State, Nebraska, and Illinois all made their way to the Big House that season. With just 4 road games, Michigan played literally twice as many games, 2/3 of their entire schedule, at the warm confines of home. Michigan simply sprung to mind here. They are far from the only school whose schedules like this. Even schools from the almighty SEC scheduled this way. Oh, I said SEC. Wait a minute.
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Even that's not such a big deal. Let's take a look at the 1988 Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. They improved from 5-7 to 9-3, not getting into a bowl game because back then only 17 bowl games were played, but they did so on the backs of a favorable schedule. They got 9 of their 12 games at home in beautiful Aloha Stadium. That's quite an advantage. Michigan got 2/3 of their games at home, Hawaii got 3/4. Then came 1989, where they improved ever so slightly to a 9-2-1 record. During this season, they traveled to Laramie to face the Wyoming Cowboys, a loss, and they also traveled to Fort Collins to face the Colorado State Rams, another loss. Every other game a win with a single tie, with every single one of those games at home. 10 out of 12, 83.3%. But to quote Billy Mays, but wait, there's more. This Hawaii team did make it to a bowl game against Michigan State, also at home in the Aloha Bowl, their first loss at home for the entire season. So yeah, they played nearly 85% of all their games at home. The point of all this is to say that home field advantage will indeed play a role in college football C-score. We will reveal how in just a moment, for we have another adjustment that needs to be discussed. The NFL record for most points scored in a single game is 73. Only 3 times has a team ever scored 70 or more. That's the NFL. In college football, 70 points isn't that extraordinary. I'm not going to count all these, but these are the instances over the years where a team scored at least 100 points in a game. Sure, all of these games are not within our timeline of 1912 and onward, and not all of them are between major college football programs, but it serves a slightly larger point that epic blowouts have been known to happen. This is especially true considering that for decades, college football failed to produce a proper national champion or a proper championship game. Championships were still handed out, of course, based on a vote of sports writers. Living on the East Coast in 1931 offered no opportunity to see teams from the West Coast play, but final scores were certainly printed in the newspaper. So a sports writer comparing, say, Syracuse to UCLA might see that Syracuse won their games by an average of 11 points per, while UCLA came in at 16 per. That may certainly tilt that sports writer's opinion toward UCLA. Even when television became ubiquitous, offering all who wished to watch that opportunity, big blowouts remained the norm. The BCS used computers which factored in margin of victory, blowouts, running up the score. These things were incentivized, almost quietly encouraged. Then we have cases like that 2022 Michigan team who opened the season at home against cupcakes so soft that pillows were getting jealous. The gap between haves and have-nots in the NFL can be substantial from time to time, but it is absolutely nothing compared to the type of seismic advantages enjoyed by Michigan, Alabama, Notre Dame over programs like Akron, New Mexico State, and Massachusetts. Even in our current era, where metrics are smarter about running up the score and strength of schedule plays a bigger factor in determining a team's resume, blowouts still occur and play a role in style points, where championships are now decided on the field, but who gets the opportunity to play for that championship is still decided by committee. Therefore, in concert with home field advantage, margin of victory is tempered down to a point to give each and every college football team an adjusted point differential. Here now is how both of these are going to work. Based on historical results, we have deduced that home field advantage is worth 2.6 points, not too far away from the traditional 3 points assigned by oddsmakers. That's 1.3 points for the away team and 1.3 points taken away from the home team. A 10-0 home victory will instead read as 8.7 to 1.3. Likewise, a 20-10 home loss will instead read as 21.3 to 8.7. A home win of 24-23 will now read as 22.7 to 24.3. But will remain as a win for the home team. Wins are never taken away, but they can be achieved with an adjusted negative point differential. Margin of victory will be capped at 3 scores plus 1/10 of a point. Before the advent of the 2-point conversion in 1958, the maximum margin of victory for our purposes is 21.1. From 1958 and onward, that margin caps at 24.1. So 2022 Michigan does not get a point differential of plus 149 for those 3 blowouts to start the season. They instead get one of 72.3, cutting it down by more than half. Combined with the horrid strength of schedule received from playing those 3 teams, all of a sudden that 3-0 start that had them ranked 4th in the nation by the AP doesn't look quite as impressive. Let us now discuss strength of schedule, what it truly means, and why C-Score does it better than anyone else. In our C-Score primer video, we mentioned the difference between C-Score and FPI, with a major difference being that C-Score begins every season with a clean slate. FPI does not do this. In fact, they make assumptions about what each team will look like based on a number of factors. These are preseason presumptions, and these artificial ratings. Yes, I am calling them artificial because that is exactly what they are, carry throughout the season. If their model says Texas is the best team at the start, then they remain a certain level higher throughout the season based on that artificial presumption, regardless of their actual on-field product. In a very real way, this is just circular logic, beginning with the exact conclusion one wishes to eventually achieve. Let's just go ahead and call it out here. We are talking about the perceived strength of the SEC. Before a single game is played, FPI assigns every team a rating based on subjective things like high school recruiting rankings, transfer portal success, and historical program success. Because SEC teams recruit so incredibly well, or so the ratings say, the computer will rank almost the entire conference very high in August. Because the computer assumes that Texas and Alabama and Texas A&M and Georgia are elite, any game played between them is instantly graded as a, quote, brutal, high-quality matchup, unquote, based on artificial value. If Texas defeats Alabama, it is praised as a massive win. If Alabama loses, the computer doesn't punish them heavily because they lost to a highly rated opponent. The cumulative effect here is that the strength of schedule of these teams are artificially inflated. It's like taking a handbag from Walmart, slapping a Louis Vuitton label on it, and telling you that it's a much higher quality bag now. Essentially, the SEC schedule looks hard because the FPI computer decided the conference was amazing before the season even kicked off. A team can play a mediocre season, but their strength of schedule will stay, say it with me now, artificially high. We pick on FPI here, but this is a real thing across the board. Here's a snapshot of it playing out in real time. These are the strength of schedule rankings for a few teams at the end of the 2025 season, as revealed on the CFP selection show. I wish there were more teams to look at here, but this is all we got. Of course, Alabama is super high at number 6. We're going to see where C-Score has their strength of schedule momentarily, and it is high, but we never had and we never will have predetermined rankings to start a season. James Madison is about scraping the bottom here at number 123, again in a reverse manner from Alabama based on presuppositions from before a single ball was kicked in the 2025 season. We're going to see where C-Score has their strength of schedule momentarily, and it's low, but again, we never had and we never will have predetermined rankings to start a season. Here are a few other teams in the middle, some bubble playoff teams and others jockeying for position in the playoffs. Now for the C-Score reveal. Again, Alabama does have a high-level strength of schedule, but a little lower than might be assumed, coming in at number 16. The difference here, and I know I am repeating myself, but this repetition is necessary, is that an assumed strength of schedule permeated Alabama's season from before its actual beginning, causing their actual strength of schedule to, say it with me now, artificially swell. Texas A&M and Ole Miss, other SEC teams, see some inflation as well, but far less pronounced. Oregon really takes it on the chin. We've got them at number 33. Notre Dame drops as well, while Miami peaks forward ahead, perhaps a sign that the ACC was a bit better than anticipated by the likes of FPI. James Madison does escape the triple digits, but yes, given their weaker conference, they still have a low strength of schedule at 98th in the country, but substantially better than presumed. Oh, and how about a team like BYU, whose resume wasn't all that different from Alabama, except for assumed strength of schedule? We don't know where they were ranked by our overlords, but check out where C-Score had them. Number 14, actually higher than Alabama. Why? Because the Big 12 was a lot tougher than assumed this season because their preseason expectations were lower. 2025 BYU was a playoff team all along last season and nobody knew about it. And before anyone thinks there's an anti-SEC bias here, let's check out the 20 hardest schedules of 2025 according to C-Score. Sitting atop the rankings is Florida, an SEC team. Numbers 5, 7, 9, 10, 16, 18, and 19 belong to the SEC. Quite frankly, C-Score is completely and utterly incapable of having a bias for or against any one conference or any one team because every single team is a completely blank slate to start the season, and everything is decided based solely on the play on the field. A team's name, prestige, high school recruitment ranking, transfer portal ranking, predicted conference finish, predicted starting offense, predicted starting defense, finish from last season, what have you, goes straight where it belongs, directly into the dumpster. And just for comparison's sake, here are the 20 easiest slates according to C-Score. Not a single team from what are considered the Power 4 conferences. Every single one of those teams finished inside the top 75, and including Notre Dame, there are 68 of them. So doing the math, that means the bare minimum of 7 teams from outside the power conferences and Notre Dame have a top 75 schedule, and here they are. None of them can break into the top 60. The two best here in Washington State and Oregon State, among 6 schools with state in their name, were in a power conference just 2 seasons earlier. So yes, C-Score truly does recognize who the good teams are and who lands the hardest and easiest strength of schedule. And we do not need artificial preseason quote-unquote assessments to do so. C-Score cares not for anything other than the cold hard numbers. If 5 SEC teams are truly among the 9 best teams in the country, as the CFP committee stated with its rankings, then we will say so. But it will be solely on merit that this takes place. And in this most recent season, in 2025, the SEC did not by any stretch of the imagination have 5 of the nation's 9 best teams, and anyone who says so does so off of reputation and brand name value, and that's it. Now that we've gone through all of that, let's tone down the potential controversy with something a little bit more pedestrian: additional C-scores. NFL teams, at least from 1933 and onward, are giving us 8 different C-scores. A base total team score, 1 each for offense, defense, and special teams, and a rushing and defense score for each offense and defense. For college, we're only getting 3 each: total team, offense, and defense. Even though NFL stats aren't available in its early days, stats in general are more available than not. College football isn't so clean, especially in the early days. We worked with what we have, and similar to how DVOA delves into estimates for those olden times, so too will we when necessary. If nothing else, we'll get a sense about which teams were offensive, defensive, or balanced overall. In the end, though, the premise of C-Score remains the same. How much better or worse is a team than average? This is a much tighter definition in the NFL, but in college it can vary widely. For the Super Bowl era, the highest rated team by C-Score is the 1985 Chicago Bears at 52.163. The lowest rated team, the 1976 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, at negative 50.645. College football will have several teams higher than those Bears and several teams lower than those Buccaneers, and the way those numbers turned out are quite astonishing. A full 456 teams from 1912 through 2025 in college football have C-scores higher than the 85 Bears. That is not in any way whatsoever meant to say that these teams were better than those Bears. It just means that they were that much better than the average college football team, which is naturally far weaker than the average NFL team. That number, 456. Do you want to guess how many teams are worse than the 1976 Buccaneers? Go ahead, take a wild guess. Okay, I did make you believe it was also 456. It wasn't, but somehow it was exactly 100 more at 556. We've given you a C-score primer. We've discussed the major expansion of C-score within the NFL, and we've introduced C-score to college football. The only natural follow-up question to all this, what's next? What's the channel gonna look like going forward? We are here to answer that today as we complete our C-score journey. Just quickly here, C-score is this channel's metric designed to provide a full and thorough evaluation to every single NFL team that ever existed, alongside every single major college football program since 1912. Full and thorough means looking into all aspects of each team rather than just dwelling on its record. The channel has been posting a little less frequently lately, a combination of real life being a sinkhole and in preparation for what is coming next. Infrequent posting is now out the window. We will have 3 series of videos all going on at the same time. The first one has been on the docket for a while. Once upon a time, we presented the 33 most disappointing NFL teams of the Super Bowl era. Naturally, the flip side to that is to take a look at the most surprising NFL teams. Not only are we going to be doing that, we will be presenting the top 50. Our criteria for the most disappointing teams was to have a positive C-score one season, a higher C-score the following season that surpassed 15, then a negative C-score in the third season, with that third one serving as the disappointment. The greater the drop-off from season 2 to season 3, the higher that disappointment ranked. Say for example we've got the 2024 Houston Texans. They put up a C-score of 0.821, positive. Then in 2025, they landed a 22 exactly, positive, an improvement, and beyond 15. If they were to drop into the negatives this season, they would have qualified for the most disappointing list. We wanted a positive C-score in Season 1 so that Season 2 didn't stand out as an anomaly, and also to reinforce exactly what is meant when calling something a disappointment. In order to disappoint, there must be expectations. The Texans, Rams, or Seahawks having negative C-scores in 2026 means a lot more than the Cleveland Browns, Tennessee Titans, or New York Jets doing so. For our most surprising teams, it will somewhat be the same, but the criteria will be varied so that it doesn't become blatantly obvious what teams would make the list and in what order they would rank. For you see, with the release of our series resimulating every single season of the Super Bowl era, every single team's C-score of the Super Bowl era has been revealed. It suffices that we'd like to keep a little mystery in the countdown. It will, however, continue to rank teams based on their change from Season 2 to Season 3. In this case, the higher the difference in C-score, the higher that team will rank. Oh, and if you somehow haven't checked out the countdown of the most disappointing teams, get on over and watch it already. It'll do you a lot of good. That's the first series. Now for the second series, which is actually a bunch of mini-series rolled into one. As you should know from a previous video, we are expanding C-score beyond just the Super Bowl era, all the way through to the very beginning in 1920. Which will also be including the first 6 seasons of the AFL and the entirety of the AAFC. We're keeping the surprise teams countdown to just the Super Bowl era in order to keep it parallel with the disappointing teams countdown. Furthermore, every team from 1933 to the present day will have 8 different C-scores attached to it. Obviously there is the total team C-score, but there is also offense, itself splitting into passing and rushing, defense, itself split into passing and rushing, and a standalone score for special teams. That gives us 8 different categories to rank and reveal, and that's exactly what we're gonna do. But don't sit here just expecting a top 10. Nuh-uh. We're going full bore with an entire top 100 100. You're gonna know C-Score's 42nd best pass defense, its 34th best rush offense, and so many more. And yes, because we love the drama, these will be countdowns separated into their own individual episodes. Those two cover the NFL. Our third series, the truly big one, is dedicated to college football. A reminder, we're going back to 1912 for all major college football programs. That's 13,134 teams across 114 seasons. We're planning to do something that is mostly happening the correct way now, but isn't all the way the correct way. We're gonna go back and simulate a national champion for every single godforsaken one of those 114 college football seasons, from an all-time low of 71 teams competing in 1918 to an all-time high of 145 teams in 1977. Everything in between, everything before, everything after, all with the expressed goal of landing a single national champion for every single season. Our NFL simulations only went back as far as 1966, and you know, it was the NFL, which maxes out at 32 teams. Thus, we were able to simulate them pretty easily in video game form. We're not going to be doing that here. It would be a Herculean task even with a full staff of people, and I'm, you know, just me. But there is a way. Using C-Score, we can express as a percentage a team's probability of winning any particular matchup. Say we've got 1997 Florida State versus UCLA. Florida State would be a 70% favorite to win. Armed with that information, we go to our trusty wheel here and put Florida State on 70 of these slots, leaving the remaining 30 for UCLA. We spin the wheel, and whoever it lands on wins the game and advances into playoffs. That simple. Some of these wheel spins can indeed be very exciting, which is what we are hoping for. Then the question naturally becomes, how do the playoffs work and who gets in? How they work is pretty straightforward. It's a 16-team bracket, seeded 1 through 16, with traditional 16-team bracket matchups. The winners will advance through the bracket, single elimination, with no reseeding. It works exactly the way regions do in college basketball, but with one major difference. In rounds 1 and 2, the higher seed will host the lower seed. It's only in the semifinals and in the championship game that the action moves to a neutral site. Whoever wins the championship game is that season's national champion. No multiple champions, no champions decided by sports writers, no ifs, ands, or buts. Just a single champion. How refreshing. Who gets in now becomes a touch more complicated and is part of the reason why the current format is only doing it correctly most of the way. The simple part here is that every single conference champion gets in, no matter what. In the days before conference championship games, if there was a tie for the conference title, one single tiebreaker was used: C-Score. All remaining spots are filled at large by non-conference champions, again, strictly by C-Score. Now this is leading into the playoffs, not an after-the-fact stat. So for these purposes, we are using C-Score for these teams at the end of the regular season in conference championship games. Bowl games and other postseason action have no impact on who makes it into this postseason because it would not have taken place at all if this system was truly in place. If, say, there are 10 conferences, then those conference champions automatically get in alongside the remaining teams with the 6 highest C-scores. If there are 12 conferences, then it's the remaining teams with the 4 highest C-scores. Then the teams are seeded 1 through 16, regardless of their status as conference champions or at-large teams. Conferences have to mean something, otherwise they should not exist. Because they do exist, and because they're at the same level, For the modern day, that's considered FBS. Then the champions will have their opportunity at the national title. Does that mean that some less than great teams are going to get in? Abso-freaking-lutely it does, and moreover, some very good teams will be left out. That's just the nature of the beast. A top-level Premier League team might miss the Champions League, while some random team from Bulgaria makes it instead. We're gonna now go ahead and reveal our first ever college football C-scores right here and now. The lowest C-score of any team to make it to the playoffs are the 1970 William & Mary Indians, champions of the SoCon Conference by virtue of win percentage due to playing fewer conference games, sitting at an adjusted regular season record of 3-6. Incidentally coached by future all-time greats, the legendary Lou Holtz, this team put up a ghastly C-score of negative 46.956. The best team left out of the playoffs would be the 1980 Alabama Crimson Tide, losing out on the 1980 SEC title to an undefeated Georgia team, sitting as the nation's fourth highest rated team by C-score, during a season where 13 conference champions get in with only 3 at-large slots available. So it is. After factoring in their bowl performance, this C-score got gargantuan at 65.446. Again, sometimes that's just the way the cookie crumbles. One last little bit here with college football before wrapping this up. In the NFL, we use whatever the team name was for that season, being the Washington Redskins, LA Raiders, New York Titans, and so forth. We will be doing the same for college too, as already demonstrated by our use of the 1970 name of the William & Mary Indians. For the NFL, we do the best we can to use the authentic logo for the time as well. That was not something we were interested in doing for this many colleges across this many seasons, so all logos for the college are current. It might look weird to see the modern day Virginia Tech logo with its VT being attached to a name like VPI, which was their original name, but that's just how it's gonna be. This sure sounds like a lot of content. And it is! So we're going to be following this schedule here. 42 weeks of videos over the course of 45 weeks. Monday through Friday, with the week of Thanksgiving, New Year's, and of course the NFL Draft serving as weeks off. And all of this starts pretty soon on Monday, August 24th. This image of the schedule is of course incredibly difficult to see here. It is available as a Google file for your viewing pleasure. The link to that is in the description of this video. Okay, that's it. You've been given all the information you need going forward. This will indeed be quite a journey, and I am looking forward to having you all join us on this ride through history, sprinkled with a little bit of fantasy. Let me know about anything that is on your mind regarding this or anything else down in the comments section below. Thank you so very much for taking some time to join us today, for taking some time to join us in the past, and for taking some time to join us in the future. And speaking of that future, until next time, I hope you have an awesome day.